Welcome back to This Day Live, the Sunday talk show here on the Arise News channel. With me now, I have Professor David Aworawo, Professor of International Relations and Strategic Studies at the University of Lagos, and Jide Ologun, legal practitioner and national development advocate. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining me today on This Day Live. Well, very quickly, I have two guests. Kekere-Ekun commenting on the change of guards at the Apex Court of Nigeria with Justice Kekere-Ekun becoming the acting Chief Justice of Nigeria and Justice Olukayode Ariwola retiring. What we did was a review of the tenure of Justice Ariwola and trying to set an agenda for Justice Kekere-Ekun. And then I had Professor Jide for Jide commenting on a number of issues. President Tinubu's new presidential jet, the attachment of sovereign assets of Nigeria by a Chinese company having issues with Ogun State government, the American elections entering the final stretch, and, well, what is likely to happen, the unknown factor that is likely to come up in the battle between Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump, who is seeking a second term as President of the United States. And then, of course, the taxi war between Nigeria and South Africa as a result of a number of issues that Professor Jide tried to identify. Let me start with you, Mr. Jide Ologun.
Thank you very much. Let's start with the issue of the private jet and the presidential jet being seized across the world. And I think it brings us to the position of sound corporate governance. Because despite all the excuses we have put on the table, the Chinese company is going ahead to embarrass the nation. And it projects a counsel that we need as a people. If you look at Proverbs 22:7-9, Proverbs 22:7-9 says, "The rich rules over the poor, and the borrower is a slave to the lender." So here we are now, suffering from how we have mismanaged our resources. And it's not likely to end early enough, because even far away in Canada, one of the aircrafts has been tagged by the same company. We have similar issues in the United States of America. So how can we begin to look at the resources we have and see this as a foretaste of bigger embarrassments to come? Because if, as at today, our total indebtedness is about 121 trillion naira, then how are we going to manage that? Then I must say congratulations to Honorable Justice Kekere-Ekun, the second a female to occupy the position of the Chief Justice of the Federation, though in acting capacity now. And in HR, we commend her for breaking the glass ceiling, on the gender side. And she's come a long way from being a practicing lawyer to magistrate all the way to the Supreme Court. And we expect that she will consolidate on the need to re-engineer the judiciary to earn the trust of the society. And one of the key points that we have here now is the promise that justice will be available to all. And if we match that with the fact that before the former CJN left office, he ensured that there's a full complement of justices in the Supreme Court right now by the appointment of 11 additional justices to have a full complement. And of course, recently, there was an increase in the available reward for judicial officers. And going further to the issue of taxi hailing, I think South Africa started this prank, and Nigerians are saying if you are good at it, we are better at it. But that again, we should learn from it. That it's not about going online to flex muscle, but re-engineering our economy to occupy the prime position that we deserve in the continent of Africa. And let me stop at that point in the interim. and allow Prof to.
Okay, Professor Aworawo.
Well, I'll just go the same order. Yeah, we have to congratulate Justice Kekere-Ekun for an appointment, the second female Chief Justice of the Federation. Yeah, she's, well, Aworawo has left. Apart from the, the appointment of more members of the Supreme Court to bring, 11 additional members to have the full complement. I can't remember any other reform that Justice Aworawo carried out. So the same pattern that we have always had, continued under him. But Justice Kekere-Ekun has promised to, re-engineer the judiciary and then, carry out transformational reforms in the judiciary to make it what it should be, justice for all and all. Well, how far she goes to achieve all of this remains, to be seen. But we just have to congratulate her. The judiciary needs to pay attention to especially political cases because some of the rulings that they have made, even the ordinary man of the streets, anyone with have a logical mind can see that, fairness was not followed. The case of Uzodinma, even though he has won another election now, we continue to remember the arithmetic that made him, governor. The same as, the current Senate president and the immediate past Senate president who didn't participate in primaries yet. They were the candidates of their party and went ahead to become senators. And several other cases like that that are almost inexplicable. And of course, the problem of, courts of the same, of, equal jurisdiction, giving orders and counter orders, usually political cases as well. All of those things are things that the CJN would need to address. Of course, in addition to corruption in the judiciary, which are so glaring in some instances. So she has a huge task to be able to, before her. Let's see how far she goes. We can only wish her well, and also wish her the courage to be able to tackle those problems and find solutions to them. Nigeria will be the better for it if the judiciary is able to do what is expected to do. Then coming to the seizure of Nigeria aircraft, it is not a matter of debts as such. It's a matter of agreements not being kept to. And the lesson we can learn from this is that, in moving forward, before agreements are reached, experts who understand all the dynamics must look at them. And then before agreements are cancelled, we cannot be reckless and just say, agreements were signed by my predecessor, I just cancelled. Something was certainly wrong with how Amosu addressed some of the agreements signed, under Governor Gbenga Daniel. A whole lot. Because many people have now come to complain how he just cancelled all those agreements like that. Even Professor Patutomi came to complain the other day about, agreement cancelled. What Nigeria is doing now, in the aftermath of the embarrassment, is what the Ogun State government under Amosun ought to have done before taking action. I mean, the company is responding to the cancellation of an agreement which was reached under Gbenga Daniel, cancelled by former Governor Amosun. That's where the problem comes from. It's not actually Nigeria. I will even commend the federal government for not abandoning the state, for standing by the state that we are one and all that. I also commend Governor Dapo Abiodun, who didn't come to say, well, it was not during my time, so he is not cavalier about it, who has accepted responsibility and is apologetic to the federal government for the embarrassment and working with the federal government to resolve the matter. That's the way to go. And moving forward, the lesson from it is that agreements that are signed by one's predecessor, when you become a governor or any other political office you hold, you inherit both assets and liabilities. And you cannot just, the usual Nigerian way, just cancel thinking that you're an emperor. That happened to Nigerians, certainly. I mean, Nigerians here. It's just that this one happened to a foreign company. That's why what is happening is happening. They can go to international, courts and then take action. So the lesson is that moving forward, before agreements are signed, especially when it involves international concerns, institutions and companies, careful attention should be paid to all the details. Experts should be involved in all the negotiations before they are signed. And if they are to be abrogated, the process must be followed to avoid this kind of thing that is happening. How many countries around the world have you seen this kind of thing, happen to? So, for presidential jet, well, the jet actually is for Nigeria. It's not for the president. And so, actually, there's not supposed to be anything wrong with buying a new jet. It's just the timing. Nigeria is in that straits economically, and people don't expect that, a government should be involved in that kind of huge expenditure at this time, when it is said that the fleet has about 10 aircraft. We don't know the state. So when I comment on it, I'm a little, careful. But the issue is the timing of the purchase of the aircraft. Not that, presidents all over the world want the best. And it's not for them, it's for, the country. But the timing, given our economic realities, that is where the problem, arises from. Where it has been purchased, and we can only say that moving forward also, the government should be, cautious. Prioritize carefully. What do we need to spend money on now? Because we don't have a lot, and we have so many things, to attend to. As far as that is concerned, that is what is to be advised. Nigeria, South Africa, unfortunately, beyond internet, online, whatever, is a tragedy. The Nigeria and South Africa have carried on the way they have. All of these things came from one Chidima's case like that, and then from them we can see how things have built up. Nigeria-South Africa relations celebrated 30 years about 3 months ago. I was even a guest speaker at the forum organized by the South African High Commission. And this is one of the issues that came to the fore. How can Nigeria and South Africa move away from being competitors to collaborators, to be able to move the continent forward? The way Germany and France have moved from adversaries to friends to move Europe forward. That is the challenge. It's beyond the internet, whatever, because it is real. When you travel to South Africa, you see it. It is real. The enmity between Nigerians and South Africa, not just the country, Nigerians, ordinary Nigerians and ordinary South Africans. In fact, it's not just adversarial. It is deep enmity. And as I suggested in my speech, in my lecture at that time, there needs to be education. Nigerians will be educated to love South Africans, and especially South Africans will be educated of the sacrifice Nigeria made for their freedom. So that all of this, moving forward, things can be a lot better. It is very saddening that what has happened. Finally, South Africa, U.S. elections. Yes, Professor Jide was talking about the fog of war. Karl von Clausewitz, in his book on war, talked about those things you don't expect that could crop up and disrupt, your plans.
The X factor.
Yes. Well, Kamala Harris, it seems she will win the election. It's not just the polls. In the past 1 month, she has managed to gather $540 million. That is the highest ever by anybody in the United States. And these are ordinary people donating $10, $20, $50. Somebody you donate money to is somebody you want to go and vote for. So, and of course, it's clear from the way the Republicans are responding. Just like Professor Jide said, he's right. They can't pin her down to anything, yet that is glaring. They can use to, portray her weakness and all that. But of course, October surprise is always there and all of that. But the way things are going, something unusual has to happen for her to lose the election.
Okay, Mr. Ologun, do you agree that Kamala Harris will be able to upstage Donald Trump?
Going back to when Hillary Clinton was confronting Donald Trump and she appeared to be gaining an upper hand, some questions came up. One of the questions was, were Americans ready to have a female president? And that was a huge one. And with the aggression that Donald Trump brought into it. And I was in the US then, monitoring the campaigns and everything. It came to a point when the concept of the 40% of Americans came up, that it may end up being an election of 60% because there's a 40% I don't know where they will swing. And at the end of the day, it appeared to swing towards the bias for the white. But given how Donald Trump has portrayed himself and all the cases he has found himself into, there is now another frame about him. He's framed as someone who doesn't have a tolerance, particularly when it comes to immigration matters. And rather than focusing on policies and issues, he has spent so much time on hitting the personality of Harris. But, you know, from the most recent analysis we are having, it appears that Harris is getting an upper hand. But that is not to say that some surprises cannot come. But Republicans are really struggling now to match the frontline position that Harris has been occupying. And if she wins, it will be a big victory. You know, like I mentioned earlier, in the case of the Chief Justice of the Federation acting, it should be breaking the glass ceiling, you know, for the female gender.
But do you think Robert Kennedy Jr. withdrawing from the presidential race as an independent candidate necessarily gives advantage to Donald Trump?
It should, but the person of Donald Trump, particularly when he did not win the last election, you know, how he really invaded the democratic space of the United States of America. And I think that is a huge one for the adversary to hold against him now. But like I said, you know, some big wigs also in the US, particularly the rich, are also throwing their weight financially behind Donald Trump, who they expect should represent their interests as capitalists. But we are monitoring, and for majority, from what I have monitored, from the majority of those who will, you know, change the game, I think Harris is likely to take an upper hand. But we are monitoring.
Okay, you're optimistic. I have Democrats at this table. Anyway, let's talk about the Middle East, where there is escalating conflict. And Hezbollah has fired more than 320 rockets towards Israel, ostensibly in retaliation for the assassination of one of its senior commanders in Beirut, Lebanon, in July. In a statement, the Iranian-backed Lebanese group says it targeted 11 military sites in northern Israel and added that the first phase of its attack against Israel is complete. The group says it is beginning a large-scale operation and has sent drones as well as rockets towards Israel. Meanwhile, the Israeli military says before the enemy strikes, its warplanes hit Hezbollah targets in Lebanon after detecting moves to fire missiles and rockets into the country. Distant explosions were seen, followed by the launch of what looked like a series of missiles in the skies over northern Israel near the border with Lebanon in the early hours of Sunday. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has also convened a meeting this morning with members of his cabinet following the announcement that the army was launching airstrikes inside Lebanon. Defense Minister Yoav Gallant has declared a 48-hour state of emergency across Israel. Now, the major fear here is that there's the possibility, there's the reality of an escalation of conflict in the Middle East, an all-out war that will drag in not just Israel or Hezbollah, but also Iran, but also the United States that is committed to defending Israel. Now, how worse could this go? How far could this go? What are the basic possibilities that we should expect in the Middle East?
Well, unfortunately, it seems that things will get worse until they get better. Because the structures that would ensure peace do not exist. Some negotiations have gone on in Qatar for quite some time now, and developments like this continue to make progress to be slow, and sometimes negotiations even getting totally halting. And when you have this kind of thing, I mean, escalation is what follows, and I mean, it's obvious from what we have seen. Before now, it was Israel versus Hamas. Somewhere along the line, Hezbollah joined the fray, firing rockets, from southern Lebanon, and then, of course, Israel now retaliating. In fact, preemptive in this last one, the one of yesterday, stroke last night, preemptive attack, but Hezbollah was still able to, fire over 300 rockets into Israel. Hezbollah reportedly is even targeting the IDF and Mossad, headquarters, offices. And if that happens, of course, Israel's response is going to be very tough and very fierce. So things are so bad now, and the humanitarian catastrophe is indescribable. In Gaza, we've seen how it is, unfolding. Of course, now it has stretched to Lebanon. We've said this over time and again that the diplomacy to resolve this intricate conflict should gain momentum, and that we expect the United States to be a little less one-sided, because the U.S. is by far the world's strongest country. And if the U.S. had, been a honest broker, coming to the middle and being involved more actively in the negotiations, diplomacy will be able to bring peace to the place. But U.S.'s commitment to Israel and support for Israel has made that difficult, if not impossible, and has left countries like Qatar, Egypt, and the rest of them. Of course, the U.S. is involved. Secretary of State flies down here and there, but U.S.'s position is diminished by the commitment, for one side of the divide. So we keep urging diplomacy. When wars break out, it is when diplomacy fails that nations go to war. And of course, most wars end through the diplomatic process. And so it's only diplomacy we can advocate at this point to prevent an all-out war engulfing the Middle East with catastrophic consequences.
Yes, Mr. Ologun.
Thank you very much. I think I want to focus on the lessons we should learn from this battle going on. Israel is saying there is a mandate to protect the citizens. And there is this simple rule in Israel that you hurt us, we hurt you. And that prompted the preemptive attack that took place. And if you go to the involvement of Hezbollah, it may make it more difficult to resolve, particularly when you also look at how the United States of America is coming in. Hezbollah came up in 1982 with the support of Iran, and they even followed the template. That name particularly even came from the Iranian president, Ayatollah Khomeini, and followed his pattern after the Iranian Revolution of 1979. And it's a movement that Israel has tagged as being terroristic in nature. And you can see what Israel is doing now is that we go all in to defend our people and to prevent threats to our people. But from what I also read, I think right now the two parties are beginning to say, okay, let's go back to Cairo. Let's see how we can, in fact, they are making statements that are insinuating finality to these attacks. But we hope that flies, because like it is said generally, you may be able to tell when the battle starts, probably not when it ends. You can see what is also going on between Russia and Ukraine right now. But basically, the position of Israel is that we are not going to use kid's glove to handle this unprovoked invasion. Remember that on the 7th of October 2023, Hamas decided to attack Israel with casualties. But as we speak today, the casualty on the side of Lebanon has been higher than that of Israel. So we, and I quite agree with Prof that if the US, that is the police of the world, if they really want peace, there are ways they can approach it. But as we speak right now, Israel is not willing to play the lame party in that battle. And I'm not sure the world is prepared for, is it the Fourth World War right now? Because Iran also...
To be Third World War.
Iran, maybe we classify that of Russia and Ukraine warming up for the so Iran also is on the other side giving strong support to Hamas and Hezbollah. But we pray that as they revert back to Cairo, they will be able to understand one another, because there are representatives on both sides. But let me commend the proactive nature of Israel in saying that Israel foresaw a tragedy coming and decided to rise to checkmate it. So we hope that they come to terms by allowing the spirit of understanding, because at the end of the day, the war will end somewhere and somehow. But then, finally, going back to how Hezbollah started, we also need to come back to our country and see forces that are rising up in the nation and see how we can protect the citizens from these forces, particularly with the Russian flags being, touted around during the last end hardship protest in Nigeria. So those are matters of interest for me in this Israel-Hezbollah case.
Well, let's come back to Nigeria. Now, the federal government, a few days ago, approved for the Nigerian Immigration Service to increase the fees for the Nigerian passport, effective next month, to be specific, September 1. The 32-page passport, which fee goes for 35,000 naira, will now be issued for 50,000 naira, while the 64-page passport with 10 years validity, which presently stands at 70,000 naira, will be issued for 100,000 naira. The spokesperson for Nigerian Immigration Service, Kenneth Udo, said through a statement that the decision was taken as part of efforts to maintain the quality and integrity of the Nigerian standard passport. He, however, said the fees will remain unchanged for those living in the diaspora. Now, that's the story. Nigerians will now be required to pay more to obtain, the passport, the Nigerian passport. At a time when fuel prices are going up, people can't even get fuel. At a time when inflation is going up, the cost of living is very high. At a time when, people are saying, well, if the Nigerian government is broke, the Nigerian government should just come forward and say, we are broke. We are looking for money from any possible source. So there have been reactions from Nigerians. Is this the best time to increase the cost of the Nigerian passport? Standard or no standard, quality or no quality? What exactly is wrong with the quality of passport that we have now? And in any case, it will be difficult for you to even get any passport at 35,000 naira. You are always told booklets are not available. Professor Aworawo, I don't know whether your passport has expired.
No, it hasn't.
You'll be one of the first persons to pay more.
No, it hasn't. It still has some. I'm a bit lucky. The last time I renewed it, the young man that helped me was my former student. When I was asking for the bank how to pay, he just told me to come to First Stack. I discovered he had paid for me.
You see the privileges that teachers it teaches the word.
But speaking seriously, what is there in Nigeria that the price is not going up? Virtually everything. As we were discussing this a few days ago, somebody told me that bets, registration of bets, that one too has increased. It's just that it was not announced. I mean, when you give bet, normally you pay 500, you register. That's maybe 10,000 or 20,000 now to register bets. The other day,
really?
Just 2 days ago, we saw a letter online of fees now to be introduced to unity schools. Very high, 100 and something thousand. In fact, it is of I'm more worried about that if it is true, it looks true, than even the passport. Because the consequence, I know of many people who can pay, who struggle to pay their children's school fees. And like last year, I know of some friends whose children will have come to International School, University of Lagos, who had to struggle to take them to Unity School because they couldn't afford the ISL fees. If with this increase, where would they get the money to pay? If it is true and it looks true. So what is it that the price is not going up in Nigeria? Which is the reason we are talking about policies that will make us to be able to create wealth. Such that all of these increases that are just galloping. The other time it was power, band A, band this, band that, and then now passport, then Unity School, then BET, just virtually everything. And to your question as to if the government should come and say, well, who does not know the government is broke? Everybody knows the government is broke. The government does not have to come out to say we are broke. For instance, crude oil, for instance, we know that some of our crude, a percentage of it goes to pay for debt, the debt that the government has acquired. 90,000 barrels of oil every day go to service one. Another 80,000 barrels per day to service. So, which of course, that is clear. And that is why the advocacy is for policies that will be able to make Nigeria, generate wealth, so that the government can be solvent and Nigerians too can live a better life. But all of these increases, the government should be careful about them because people are selling their children. You see children are now for sale. People who can no longer feed, who can no longer meet their basic needs, are putting their children for sale.
Well, look, Kenneth Udo, the spokesperson for immigration,
yes,
says that this step has been taken to align with the renewed hope agenda of President Tinubu. So if you have to pay more to get the Nigerian passport, it is part of renewed hope.
How is hope renewed when the cost goes up, people cannot afford it? Does that look like hope being renewed, or from optimism to pessimism and hope to despair? So forget about what do you expect him to say? He has said what he has to say. But the reality from us, as far as all of these issues are concerned, is that it's antithetical to renewed hope.
Well, Mr. Ologun, the idea is that they want to improve the quality of the Nigerian passport so that when you hold it, you know that there is renewal, that hope is renewed.
The Nigerian passport I hold is of high quality. I've gone to some countries of the world, US, Canada, Dubai, everywhere, and I've not been held down because of quality. And I think the government is just looking around for where to make money. And unfortunately, the citizens are the victims. We are not even talking about the price of gas. We are not talking about the price of electricity. And you asked a question here, who does not know Nigeria is broke? I doubt if the National Assembly knows that Nigeria is broke. Recently, we were discussing what they earn in that environment. And that is why I said, Prof, earlier, making reference to the Proverbs 22:7-9, I think we are in trouble. We are a heavily indebted nation. The president or the presidency came out to tell us that about 96% or thereabout of our revenue goes into servicing debts. And one of the achievements lately is that it's been scaled down to about 86%. So if over 70% of your revenue goes into servicing debt, then what is left? You just mentioned the case of crude oil. It traumatizes me when I realize that the asset of the country has become liability, mortgaged towards the future. We were applauding what the president said, that crude oil should be given to Dangote in Naira. Some producers are saying no, talk to NNPC about it. As we speak now, NNPC is giving us grammar between shortfall and subsidy and different kinds of figures. So we are in trouble. But the hope I have is that what we did when the government came out then to say that we were going to pay this cyber security levy, and we said no. We are not going to add that to the burden we have now. And I think Nigerians should be bold enough to let the government know that there is nothing wrong with the quality of the international passport I hold. So why are you? And now, let's even talk about official fee and official's fee. So if one is moving from 35,000 to 70, what is the official's fee? Maybe additional 35. That scales it up to like 100 or thereabout, then the other one to 150. What exactly is going on?
No, what are you saying?
What exactly?
I mean, the immigration people, they've said, this is the official fee. Which one is official's fee?
The Controller General of Immigration disguised at a time to the Ikoyi office and said that there was corruption there. I mean, we are in Nigeria. We know these things. So, and let's also advise the government. The questions on the lips of some citizens is that what exactly are we benefiting from this government? Who will answer that question? Because people are on their wits' end. You know, I was disturbed by what I see. I see many people pretending to be mad now, or whether they are really mad, particularly around the Ikeja. We need to look into all these things. People are on edge. So where do they go? So please, government, and we have now abandoned the resources we have that should be springboards for prosperity to bandits, economic bandits, oil thieves, mineral resources thieves. So where do we go from here? And I was reading recently that the illegal miners are behind banditry and everything. So do you know them or you don't know them? Who are they? Why don't we go after them? And make sure that we preserve the blessings of this country for people to enjoy. You know, like Prof said, I have my passport I've renewed for another 10 years, so I'm not really concerned about myself, but I'm just looking at the disposable income available to Nigerians. So if out of the 70,000 naira minimum wage, you need to pay 70,000 to get international passport, then what is left for others, apart from the official's fee? And I'm challenging Nigerians now to go and investigate whether there are officials' fee or not in our country. That is it possible that you just go in there and get things done the normal way?
Well, I get your point, Mr. Ologun, but where we may disagree is you are saying, what are we benefiting?
I said the questions on the lips of some Nigerians, doctor. Not
but
on my
you
lips.
are benefiting certain things.
I know. I said the questions. You know, it's good to have feedback. That, you know, in public relations.
After all, the government has restored fuel subsidy now. That's a benefit.
I don't know how much you bought. There is an argument that it's not subsidy. In fact, NNPC is saying they have not paid subsidy to any marketer in the last 9 years. Okay. So where do we go from here? That it is shortfall. Different forms of grammar. And they are claiming that they spent about 7.8 trillion naira on shortfall in 7 months in Nigeria, doctor.
Okay.
So who are the economists to help us interpret
but
this?
The president says whatever has been saved, you know, in the last few months should now be used as subsidy.
Why don't you use it to pacify the citizens? Who are the subsidy collectors? NNPC is saying we have not paid subsidy in the last 9 years. Who do we believe?
It is semantics. Shortfall, subsidy. What? You pay 7 point something trillion to some people. You say shortfall. It's just a matter of, you know, the word used.
But have you received minimum wage now?
I have not.
Really?
Minimum wage is in the pipeline.
Minimum wage
is in the region of maximum wage, not, you know.
Minimum wage will lead to maximum wage.
They say it's in the pipeline, so fingers crossed.
Okay, well, I hope it will not be like a Niger Delta situation where the youths had to start looking for...
Going to the pipe to break it.
Anyway, that's all. You've been watching This Day Live, the Sunday talk show, here on Arise News. I'm Ruben Abati. From our entire team here in Lagos, it's bye for now, and thank you very much for watching.